Welcome to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Lorianne Casdia. Our goal here at Healthy Lifestyle is to inspire, educate, and empower you to fulfill a healthy, emotional, spiritual, and physical life so you can feel empowered to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. Today, I'm so excited to have our guest on Healthy Lifestyle. We're going to give you some verbal caffeine to light you up with possibilities. And today we have the great, wonderful Jack Canfield, known as America's #1 success coach. He is a best-selling author, professional speaker, a trainer, and entrepreneur. He's the founder and CEO of the Canfield Training Group, which trains entrepreneurs, educators, corporate leaders, and motivated individuals how to accelerate the achievement of their personal and professional goals. He has conducted the live trainings for more than 1 million people in more than 50 countries around the world. He's a superstar. He has trained me. He's awesome. I really recommend it. He holds 2 Guinness World Record titles and is a member of the National Speakers Association Speaker Hall of Fame, Jack is a co-author of more than 200 books, including The Success Principles, which we will talk about today, How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be, the Success Principles Workbook, and of course, he is well known for Chicken Soup for the Soul series, which includes 40 New York best-selling bestsellers and has sold more than 500 million copies in 47 languages around the world. Clearly a slacker. Jack is featured teacher in the movie The Secret and has appeared on many more thousand radio and television shows, but this being the most important one, including the Oprah Winfrey Show, Oprah's Super Soul Sunday, and the Today Show, Fox and Friends, Larry King Live, you name it, he's been on it. Welcome to the show, Jack. I'm so happy to have you here.
My pleasure, Lori, and thanks for inviting me.
Oh my gosh, so good. So we've worked together, and I'm so grateful for all the tools you've given me. And my parents were teachers, and I know how impactful it was. I actually didn't know when I was a kid how cool it was that my parents were teachers, but I was traveling out to California. I used to be a negotiator for a very large firm. I was traveling out to California to negotiate. I have a very different last name in Iulio, and anybody who sees that name is either a relative or knows one of us. And the gentleman approached me in the airport and said, "You related to Edward Iulio?" And I was like, "Which one, senior or junior?" And he goes, "I think senior. He's a music teacher, now a superintendent of schools." And I said, "Yes, I am." And he goes, "I want to thank you, and please send my regards to your father because he saved my life." I was like, "What?" And I said, "Tell me the story." So he tells me the story of how he saved his life, but he made him do some things that gave him the discipline. He's now a professor in a university. And he said, "But for your father, I probably would have been in jail." And that's how powerful it is to be a teacher. So I would love you to talk about that, because I know you come from teaching. And before we get into that, can you define a little bit about where you came from? Because I know your backstory, but I want my listeners to hear your whole story about where you are and where you are today.
Well, I was born to an alcoholic father and mother. My dad was in the Air Force during World War II. He trained bomber pilots to go over to both, Europe and Japan. And my mom divorced him when I was 6 because he got violent when he drank. So then we moved into my grandmother's house, lived in the attic for a number of years until she met my stepfather, who then we moved into a normal house. But I grew up, in a house that had a lot of anger and a lot of drinking, a lot of violence. My dad was my stepfather was making $8,000 a year, which is not a lot of money. I don't know what that would be today, probably, maybe 25,000 or something like that. But anyway, so we were not rich. And I, grew up working. I worked every summer. I worked as a lifeguard at a country club pool. I worked in a florist. I hoed rows of gladiolas in summer and just, the whole deal. And then I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to Harvard University. I'd played football in high school and was honorable mention All-State and all that. So I majored in Chinese history because I got this really cool professor who had been an ambassador to China. And I just thought, and I felt drawn to it. I think I have past lives in China or something. But anyway, I got to my senior year and I thought, I don't really want to do Chinese. The language was challenging for me. And I took a class. I said to someone, what's an easy A? I need an ETA. My senior year. He said it's called SOCREL 10, Social Relations 10. It was an encounter group where people sat around and talked about their feelings and their goals and their values. And I went, I want to go up and do this. This is really cool. And so I went to my advisor. He said, you know, that's called psychology. And you have no undergraduate courses in psychology except this one. I don't think you can get into grad school of psychology. I said, well, what do I do? I want to work with people. And he said, why don't you go through education? You could teach for a while, then educational psychology, and you can kind of move over into psychology. So that's what I did. Went to the University of Chicago. And as a result of that, my student teaching was in an all-Black inner city high school called Calumet High School. And I loved it. You know, it was like, here I was, I actually could help people. These kids, a lot of them were gang members and poor, and I was able to really inspire them and motivate them. I started cutting out magazine articles from Jet and Ebony magazine and things like that, and showing them how people had gotten out of the ghetto and been successful and so forth. And many of these kids had never been more than 5 blocks from their house. So that was really exciting. And then I got an interview for this Job Corps Center where kids who had dropped out of school, the government had created this thing called Job Corps, much like Peace Corps. You could volunteer and go work with these kids. So I did that. And while I was there, I got introduced to this concept of achievement motivation. How do you motivate people to achieve more? And one of the guys said, there's this guy named W. Clement Stone in Chicago. He's running these classes and you can go take one. So I did. And he was a good friend of Napoleon Hill. And Napoleon Hill, as you know, wrote Think and Grow Rich. They actually co-authored a book together. And so that's where I got exposed to all of that, kind of the basis for the work I do now.
You're my Clemens.
Yeah. Funny. And so I'm learning things like goal setting and visualization and affirmations and positive thinking and taking action, responding to feedback, persevering, you know, all that was new to me. And so then I worked for him for a couple of years. And then this professor met me at a conference where I was. He said, you should come get a doctorate at University of Massachusetts. I'll get you a scholarship again. So I did. I ended up teaching there for a couple of years as well. And then I started my own retreat center. I met my first wife was a Gestalt therapist, and she had her PhD in therapy and all that. And so she taught me how to do it. And so we had this center where people would come for workshops. And then one day I decided I wanted to go take this training called Insight Training. And it was amazing. There were 350 people in a room. And one guy was training them all, and I went, oh man, I want to go up and do this. So I ended up going out to California, working for them for a while. Then I discovered that the guy running it was kind of like a cult leader. And I went, I'm out of here. So I went and started my own company called Self-Esteem Seminars, which morphed into the Canfield Training Group, wrote the 100 Ways to Enhance Self-Concept, started teaching teachers all over the world. And then the Gulf War happened. There was no education money anymore. So I had to start doing public seminars and corporate work. And then basically that kind of moved into Chicken Soup for the Soul. I was telling all these stories. I learned that when I was a teacher, and the kids would light up when I'm telling a story. And then when I'm talking historical facts, I fall asleep. So I said, stories are good. So I was telling all the stories. And there was this one week where people kept coming up to me saying, that story about the little Boy Scout, the Girl Scout, the people who climb Mount Everest, is that in a book anywhere? My daughter needs that. My staff needs that. And I go, no. One day I'm coming home and I was like, you should have had a V8 commercial. You're old enough to remember those. And I thought, I have to put these stories in a book. So I did. It took off, sold 10 million copies in the first 2 years. And as they like to say, that's the rest is history. We've now got over 250 Chicken Soup for the Soul books in print. It's made me a multimillionaire. I've traveled around the world in 51 countries I've spoken. And then we wrote the Success Principles. It's in a movie, The Secret. And now my major thrust is training trainers to teach this work around the world. We have like 4,500 certified trainers now that are teaching us in 117 countries. So that's a long answer to a short question, but it gives you a little sense of the trajectory of my career.
No, what I love about that though, Jack, is look at how you pivoted your life so many times. And in every one of those large pivots, you took on a challenge and you were just like, hey, I want that, and you went after it. And
Yeah.
I know you're a big goal-oriented person, and I admire that about you. And by doing that, you set your horizon and you had those pivots. So that transition, you walk your walk, you walk your talk, because you did all of those transitions. You came from not having anything to having anything you want. So that's what makes you such a wonderful role model. It also makes you such a wonderful teacher. And I love how you do everything experiential. I know I prefer that. I'm not a fan of talking heads, if you will, somebody who just gets up there and yaps at me. I love the experience that you feel, because you meet people exactly where they are, no matter where they are in their
Mhm.
process, in their life, in their journey. And then that experience, they have something to walk away with, and that is so powerful. So
Yeah.
even if that's the only thing they do with you, they still walk away with this powerful motivation and inspiration to do whatever it is they want to do the next step. So I love the story. I'm so glad that you shared it with us. Again, I was mentioning my parents were teachers and how inspirational that was when I get stopped by people who knew my dad, who knew my mom. My mom was a vocal music teacher. My dad ultimately became a superintendent, which was unheard of, coming from the music department. It usually is the gym department that becomes the superintendents. And I just admire them for doing that. And now it's funny, because now through what I'm doing using the success principles, I'm actually teaching. And I was like, I could never be a teacher. And here I am doing exactly what my parents said, no, you'd be good at it. So you've proven that. But tell us about some of, and I know you have lots of them, but tell us some of your most favorite success stories where you had a student, whether it's a younger one or some of your coaches, and how it transformed them and how that made you feel.
Well, one of my favorite stories, it just happened recently. So here I'm teaching at Calumet. This was like 1968, 69, somewhere in there. And
Jack, you're not that old. Stop it.
yeah, I'll be 79 in August. It's amazing. I don't feel that at all.
Happy birthday, August 19th.
Thank you. Thank you. So what happens was about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, right before the pandemic started, I was flying home through O'Hare Airport. O'Hare's in Chicago, is where I taught. And I get home and I open my suitcase and there's a note in there. And it says, if you're the Jack Canfield who taught at Calumet High School, I want you to know the 1 year I spent in your class changed my life forever. I'm now head of the whole baggage department of O'Hare Airport, which is it's one of the 3 most busy airports in the world.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And he said, if you hadn't taught us the stuff you taught us, because I started learning all this achievement motivation stuff like about middle of the year when I was teaching there. And I started teaching that to the kids, and the other teachers would say, what are you doing with your kids? They come to my class, they're all jacked up, they're excited, And I said, well, I'm teaching them these principles of successful living. And so that to get that, here I am, like 50 years later or whatever, that I would get that in my suitcase. That was like really, really cool. And many of those students went on to college, which would never have happened before. Several of them started businesses who sent me letters and their products they developed, the companies they own, the entrepreneurial things they're doing. So that's very exciting. I'll share with you my favorite story in terms of students that I'm working with now, like people who are teaching to be trainers and so forth. And you probably know June Ryan.
Oh,
And
sure.
June Ryan, for those of you who don't, was not the first, but one of the first rear admirals, well, the first rear admiral in the Coast Guard who hadn't gone to the Coast Guard Academy. She was enlisted, if you will. So she wanted to get into the Coast Guard Academy, couldn't do it, went to a local college, took the ROTC program, graduated, still became an ensign in the Coast Guard. And then she started working. At one point, she had she was the captain of a boat, and a ship, they would say. And so she grounded it. It was foggy, and she just like went into this river she was supposed to go into, and she missed it. And that's not good. You're not supposed to ground your ship.
Not really.
When she gets called, it's called before the mast. So she's in Ohio, and she has to go into this room where the admiral is, and he's like, reaming her out, basically, and then a letter goes into her file, and that's going to follow her entire career. And she's now convinced her career's over. It's not going to happen. And so she ended up getting a set of tapes I did, cassette tapes. We go way back when, right? So cassette tapes called Self-Esteem and Peak Performance. And one of the first tapes talks about take 100% responsibility for your response to events that happen. Well, this was an event. She realized, well, it was just an event. My response has been to be convinced I'm never going to, make high ranks and so forth. She said, but I could have a different response. And so she decided to choose to act as if she was going to become, a top ranked person in the military. And she put in extra time. She stopped being negative. She read all the rest of she got my book, read the book, and so forth, applied all these principles. And she ended up getting called down to Washington, and they wanted her to interview for this job to be the president's military aide. And you're the person that carries what they call the
briefcase. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's got the nuclear codes. And so wherever the president goes, that's always with him. And so you get to be with the president pretty much, all day long. And she thought, there's no way I'm going to get it. They're going to see that in my file. So she goes over and she says, well, I'm not going to get it anyway. I'm just going to be myself. I'm not going to try to impress anybody. And so she's just having a good time and talking it up and telling jokes and everything. And they decided to pick her because she was so much fun. And so then, she every year the way it works in the military is every year they look at your file and see if they're going to promote you. And if you go 3 years without being promoted, your career is pretty much stalled.
Yeah.
And so that happened to her, but she said, I'm just going to keep doing the work. I'm going to keep doing extra time. I'm going to volunteer for stuff. And then the next year she got advanced and then got advanced again. And eventually she became a rear admiral. And the funny part was, I love this part of the story. She now has to go to her new office, which is the same office that she had to stand in front of this other admiral when he was reaming her out for grounding the boat. So I'm sitting there looking out the window, realizing, oh my God, this is where it all started. And so I call her story full circle. She just literally went from that to that. And I just, we've got lots of people that have taken classes with me. I'll just share one other story. So I'm teaching in the Philippines, in Manila, and this guy comes in and, well, what happened? I was doing a book signing the night before, and he came and he asked if he could interview me at the end. I said, sure. So he interviewed me, and it was a great interview. And I said, wow, that was a great interview. How long have you been doing interviews? He said, you're my first interview. I said, what? He said, yeah, I was running a restaurant, and then we had this restaurant. My friend and I got into a fight, and the energy got really bad, and so the restaurant went under, and my wife left me, and I'm homeless. I'm couch surfing. I said, how much money do you have in your pocket? He says, well, $3.25. How are you getting home, bus? I said, look, here's $20. Go buy dinner on me and take a Uber home or whatever. And so then he tells me, that basically this is what he's doing. And I said, well, look, come take my seminar tomorrow for free. You're gonna be my guest. So he comes. I don't see him anywhere. He's sitting in the back. 3 years later, I come back to Manila. He walks in a suit with this big coat of arms, like on his pocket.
Breast pocket, right?
Yeah, and about 12 other people wearing polo shirts with that same coat of arms, that same logo, And I went, whoa. He says, you remember me? I said, you're the guy who interviewed me. He says, yeah. He says, I was totally broke. He says, right now, I'm now they call themselves the money magnet. I teach prosperity consciousness. I have 2 condos, one at the beach, one here. I have 3 cars. He's wearing 2 Rolex watches, which I don't understand, but he's in the bling. And he was making several $1 million a year. And I said, what happened? He said, I read your book, and I decided I would do everything in it for a year. Every single thing, I was going to do it for a year. And either I was going to waste a year or my life was going to transform. He said, it transformed. He said, just, you'd be surprised. I don't know that anyone's done everything in that book because there's 67 principles.
Yes.
Basically, he's now like the Jack Canfield, Tony Robbins of the Philippines. He does workshops, 600 to 1,000 people show up. He's got a radio show. Amazing.
Wow, those are great stories. That's amazing. And I know you have hundreds and thousands of more, because I know so many of the people now, being that I've been to many of your sessions, and taken your classes and met these I mean, you attract these type of people that are just amazing, and your kindness is very prevalent, and that runs through your students too, I've noticed. So I really appreciate that. June she's a peach. I would have never known she was an admiral. And when she told me that, she was teaching one of the classes, she was doing an experiential teaching, which is giving someone an experience as opposed to talking about it. We show
Right.
you. So she was doing one of those, and she was like, yeah, and I'm an admiral, and my brother's a retired colonel. And I'm like, you're an admiral? And it just like shifted her into a different direction for me. And I love that story. I didn't know the full story about June. So that was really cool that she got to pivot and stand in his shoes now that she's sitting in the same room.
Right. Amazing.
I remember another story that someone came up to me and told, which was they were in their car. They were living out of their car, and they got a hold of your book, and that changed their life too. So that transformational, it's just inspirational that someone can transform just by reading your book. When we come back after the break, I really want to talk to you about what was the inspiration behind putting the success principles in there. But before we jump, how does it make you feel? Like, how does Jack feel about that? How's small Jack, little Jack inside feel about what you're doing on a daily basis?
Little Jack's very happy. I sleep very well. I feel very content in what I've contributed to people's lives, and happy about it. Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing, just amazing. You're listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. We're going to be right back with Jack Canfield. You can get more information about Jack Canfield at jackcanfield.com. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Lorianne. If you would like to be a guest or lift up your business, product, or not-for-profit, or if you have a question or comment, please email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. Jack, I'm always told I speak New York fast, so I have to always slow that down.
I get that.
So we are back here with Jack Canfield talking about him, his life, how he came up with the thing, everything that he's done, the transformations he's had, the transformations he's allowed people like myself to have. And I love that. So to that, what was your inspiration behind your fantastic book, The Success Principles? I really encourage you to go to jackcanfield.com and pick that book up. But what was the inspiration behind you putting all those 67 principles together?
There were two things, actually. One, I was in bed once, I think it was a Saturday morning. My son was there. He was about, I don't know, 6 or 7. And he asked me a question. He said, and I'm working on my computer, and he's working on his computer, playing some kind of computer game. And he said, Dad, how come our house is bigger than everyone else's I know? And I said, well, I've been more successful. Well, what's that mean? Well, you know, wrote these books, have been very successful. He said, well, how come you're more successful than most people? And I said, well, I think it's because I live my life by a set of principles. And he said, well, what are they? And I started to tell him, and after a while he got bored. And he said, okay, thanks, Dad. And he went back to his game. But I was starting to think, like, well, what are all the principles I live by? So I literally made a list, and it was about 115 principles. And I thought, you know, maybe if I write 3 pages per principle, I could do a book and share these principles with people. And I got very inspired by that, because I thought I really wanted to start, and I was teaching these in my seminars, and the people loved them and getting all the kind of successes we just talked about before the break. And then what happens is I thought I really want to get more into spiritual things, you know, meditation and intuition and inner guidance and fulfilling your purpose and things like that. And so I'll write this book. I'll put everything I know about success, and I'll be done with that chapter of my life. What I didn't realize is when you write a book, everyone wants you to come and talk about the book you wrote. So I'm still talking about it. You know, this was like 2005 it came out, I think. So here we are, you know, 20 some years later, I'm still doing it.
Still talking about it.
Yeah, now I do spiritual things and I teach. I've integrated more of that into the work, but that was really the impetus. And I thought, could I write a one-stop shop book? Meaning there's lots of things to know in different fields. How to be a successful doctor might be different than how to be a successful lawyer, but how to be successful in any area of your life, relationships, finance, health and fitness, making a difference in the world, contribution. Those principles underlying that, they're all the same.
Yes.
And so I thought, if I could put all that in a book and someone could read that book and they wouldn't have to read anything else other than in their specific field, what would have to be in there? And that's really what that book was about. And I like to say, most people are not successful because success is like a combination lock. If you know the combination, the lock opens. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, female, male, graduated from college, didn't graduate from high school. If you know the combination, lock opens. Problem is, some people are missing one number, two numbers, and you have them in the wrong order, it's not going to open. So some people are doing the right things, but doing them in the wrong order, the wrong way, at the wrong time. They're not getting what they want. So literally, I see it as a system. It's a system of success. And the thing about a system is it always produces a consistent result. You know, your apple pie recipe from your grandmother, if you do it exactly the way it's stated, preheat the oven, don't use molasses, use brown sugar, whatever, then what happens is you get the same apple pie.
Yeah.
And that's really what I wanted to do, is teach people. And we've got literally millions of people now who have told me they are successful because of the book and the seminars we do.
Yeah, it's a foundational structure that's very, very strong as long as you follow the steps and you take responsibility. And I love that. The taking responsibility is it's the easiest thing because it's the most control you have. And then the rest, a lot of that, the other things are mindset. Like you, I've integrated a lot of different modalities into what I do. So I love the essential oils. I know you added that to what you do. Tapping, I know you do that as well. Meditation, setting space. But how did you come about? Is this your experience, or did you come up with this? You had mentioned that doing that experiential, that going in and teaching, speaking about it, and showing them, meeting each of your people where they are. How did you come to that?
Well, when I was running my retreat center in Massachusetts for, I don't know, close to 5 years, maybe, we had some presenter, some trainer come in every weekend, except maybe Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, running a seminar. And the things they did that were experiential were the ones that had the most impact on me, whether it was a guided visualization, a partnership process, learning muscle testing, kinesiology, you know, testing your arm when you say, I can't, and your arm goes weak, say, I can, your arm stays strong. People go, whoa. I just learned one the other day, Lorianne, it's so cool. You take a guy, you put him in another room, you give him a pendulum, like just, you know, paper clip on a piece of thread. And you say, I want you to think it's going from A to B, right to left, right to left, right to left. And pretty soon it starts to go right to left. Now you tell the people in the main room, when he comes back, we're going to ask him to think and do right to left, right to left. But I want all of you to think forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. So he's going A to B, you're going C to D. So he comes in, doesn't know it's going to happen, starts to do it, it's going this way. And then I just do a little thing like this. He doesn't see it. The whole group starts doing the other way. And within a minute, it's going the way the group wants it to go. And he's like, cannot make it not do that. And so that little experiential exercise, when you do it, everyone goes, oh my God, the power of a group intention is amazing. And so I love it when you learn it because you experienced it, you remember it because it's you, it Velcros to your consciousness. And so literally every time I would see anything, read about it, watch it on YouTube, whatever, I watched this guy hold up $100 bill and say, who wants it? And everyone just sits there, and eventually someone gets out of their seat and runs up and gets it. I thought, that's cool. So I'll hold my book up and say, who wants this? And then eventually someone gets it and they come up and we talk about, why the rest of you sit there? What did you tell yourself? Why didn't you take action? Well, that's why you don't take action in life. So literally I've got hundreds of those, and that's, I think, the way everything should be taught. We've now got a curriculum called Self-Esteem in the Classroom for teachers that allows them to learn a lot of these techniques that they can do with their students in school as well.
Yeah, I love those. The paperclip one, that's amazing. That's really cool because that also goes to vibration, and that everything is vibrational around us, and so we can choose those higher vibrations, which are happy feelings, and the lower vibrations are the not so happy feelings. So that's why, you know, sometimes people come into a room and they suck the life out of the room because they're in this low vibration, and just like everybody was doing well till you walked in. So we can change that vibration. And I love the collective mind. Another experiential that I love that you do, which is you put everybody on one side of the room and have them get to the other side of the room. but they can't do it the same way. Not everybody has to do it a different way. Besides the adrenaline that runs through when somebody takes your idea, you're like, oh God, I got to come up with something else before you go.
Right.
It's great because at the end you say that, did everyone get to the other side of the room? Yes. Did you do it the same way? No, there's not one way to do something. There's not one right way, as long
Right.
as we get to our end goal. I love that too, because it's inspirational as well as a huge aha moment. So I, those experientials are so wonderful, and the way you teach us how to teach is something that I'm so inspired by. And to be able to teach other coaches and train other coaches how to utilize your success principles is great. And you don't have to be a coach or want to be a coach. Just pick up the book and read it. It will help you be successful. Sometimes you need a little bit of accountability. Accountability is real important to success, I believe. Do you believe that as well?
Oh yeah, no, here's the problem with a lot of people watching is they're solo entrepreneurs. You know, they're a salesperson, they're a coach, they're a massage therapist, they, you know, whatever. They don't have a boss. If you have a boss and your boss says, call the White House, see if you can get through to the president, you probably won't, but you're going to call anyway because your boss told you to.
Right.
But you can sit there for an hour and a half talking yourself out of it because you don't have a boss telling you what to do. So when you have an accountability partner, which is someone you're going to talk to, I say 5 days a week. Here's what 5 things I'm going to do today. And then tomorrow you have to say, did you do them or not? What happens is after a couple of days of not doing them, you get sick of saying I didn't do it. And so you do it. And so this accountability and responsibility is what takes you where you want to go. And so many of us have wounds that are, you know, as a child, what should I say? We got wounded by our parents rejecting us, kids rejecting us for being ourselves. So we were too loud. We talked about sex. We asked for money. We were told, you know, that you're too abrasive. You know, money doesn't grow on trees, whatever. So we grow up with all these beliefs about what's wrong with us. You know, I'm not attractive enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not athletic enough. I'm not, you know, intelligent enough. I'm not lovable enough, etc. And so we have to work to let those go. And once we do that, we naturally are willing to do whatever we need to do. And that's, again, it's experiential work that takes you back to when you made that decision.
Yeah.
Somewhere between the age of 2 and 7, we all decided something that stopped us from being our natural self. And the more you go back to your natural self, as you said, your vibration naturally becomes joyful, happy, high, appreciative, grateful, etc. And when you do that, and everything just starts to, it's almost like it starts to happen. You wonder, why are all these miracles happening in my life? Because you're at this high vibration, because you've removed the things that were making you feel bad, the negative thoughts, the negative beliefs, the wounds that weren't healed, the feelings that are in there that are not expressed, and so forth. So that's literally, I'm so excited right now. I'm writing a book about love and fear. And basically who we are is love. And the only thing that stops that from being expressed is fear.
Yeah.
And so we got a choice between these. It's a binary choice, really. Do I make the phone call? Do I love myself by making the phone call? Am I loving you by making the phone call? Or am I going to live into fear? And so basically, I think that's really one of the things I'm most excited about now is just seeing that that's really the major dichotomy that stops us.
Yeah, it's 2 choices. That's a chapter I wrote in a book. 2 choices. It's either yes or no, go or stop, do it or don't do it. You know, we only have 2 choices, but then we muck it up with all this other emotional stuff. So I combined, you know, some legal experience that I have and how lawyers think. I was always intrigued how lawyers think because they get through all the emotion and they go right to the issue. And that's what this is about. It's either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. So you're either going to go forward or you're going to stay where you are. And that's okay. Whatever your choice is okay. But you had mentioned beliefs before, and beliefs are just thoughts we think over and over again. So we can change those thoughts, change those beliefs, and do exactly what you say. So I love your approach of, you know, love versus fear. And without fear, you're unstoppable. And without fear, you're genuinely yourself because you're more solid in who you are. And then nobody could say anything to you that's going to hurt you feeling. That goes to that green hair, right? The green hair exercise. You know, it's not what I'm saying to you. It's what you say to yourself after I stop talking, if I ever stop talking, but I'm a radio show host, so I never do that.
Well, let's explain green hair. So what I do is I'll go up to someone and say, Mary, you have green hair. Does that upset you? She goes, no. I said, why not? Because I know I don't have green hair. But then I say, Mary, you're one of the most selfish people I've ever met. Does that hurt you? She goes, yeah, a little bit. Now, she knows she doesn't have green hair, but she doesn't know that she's not selfish. So anytime someone does something or says something to you that you feel hurt by, means that you already had that belief in you. All they did was bring it up. We call it triggering you, because that belief was there. That belief is your responsibility to transcend and realize that you are who you are and that you're a nice person. And or if you are too self-absorbed, maybe you need to let that go, become a little more balanced. But the point is, nobody can hurt my feelings. I often say, go ahead, hurt my feelings. Can't do it, because I don't have the place where that's going to Velcro to.
Yeah. Yeah. And it comes with awareness, because I usually say, you know, you need to be aware of something in order to change it or choose not to. But you need to be aware. So that awareness is really important in that decision of whether you're going to do something or not do something, or feel hurt or not. So generally when something comes now and it's like, oh, that hurt my feelings, I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to look at it within myself
Exactly.
that is making me feel that way? It's not the person, it's not the statement, it's just it elevated something within me that I wasn't even aware was there.
And it's a gift to you, because now
Yes.
it allows you to see it and release it.
And release it, and that releases fears too, when you just release things. And that when you have no fears, you're fully empowered to be genuinely who you are, and we all need to be. That's one of my superpowers. I can see your successes. I can see in down the road 7 to 10 steps down of who you could be if you just allowed yourself to be that person. But our society and education kind of put you in a box. You stand in line, you follow each other, you have to hold hands, you have to sit in the same seat. Yeah. So they kind of pigeonhole you. So my feeling is always, I don't want to be the pigeon in the pigeonhole. So I'm always breaking out of that box. So my feeling is that's what we need to do. We need to just be who we are, because people are magnificent when they are who they're genuinely supposed to be. Don't you think?
Yeah, and you was reminding me of a book title. Would you rather be a pigeon or the statue?
The
Because
pigeon.
the pigeons are always dropping stuff on top of the statue.
Exactly. Now you told us your next project is doing the book Love versus Fear. What's your dream for the near future? So what's your next plateau? Because you have had so many.
Well, as I said, one of my goals is to have 1 million trainers training this work around the world. In order to do that, I need to train more trainers of trainers. Up until me, it's been me and Kathleen Seeley and a few other people. But now I want to create these senior trainers of trainers. So that's the next step. But I want to have country coordinators that are coordinating the teaching of this in all the different countries around the world, which I think, is a doable project for the next couple of years. I have 4 books I want to write. The Power of Wow. How do you create wow experiences for people in business? And I've interviewed like the head of the culture for Ritz-Carlton hotels and all kinds of really interesting people.
No
And
pun. Wow.
yeah, wow, exactly. Anytime I tell anybody something is in that book, they go, wow, so it's definitely working there. We just need to finish it. And I'm going to write a book called Ayahuasca for the Soul.
Oh, yes.
I've gotten into plant medicine in the last 5-6 years and go down to Costa Rica once a year. And I just joined the board of directors at this place called Rhythmia, which is a place where they do this work. And the phenomenal work that's taking place all around the world, including America. And I've already got some celebrity stories of people who've transformed because of ayahuasca. And so I want to help bring this mainstream. And I'd say it's the writing and the training of trainers. So those are my two big projects, and spend more time with my grandson and take a little more time off. As I said, I'll be 79 in August. So just slowing down a little bit.
You know what? Nice. Don't slow down too much though. We need you to, we need you.
I won't.
So, and I ask all my guests this, and what's your why? Why do you do what you do?
Well, I had an experience a long time ago where we were in a workshop and it was all teachers, all educators. And they said, go back to the earliest time when you can remember deciding to be a teacher. And everyone went back to 4th grade, college, whatever. I went back to where I wasn't born yet. I'm a spirit floating through space with other spirits. And looked down on Earth. It was World War II, bombs are going off. And I said, I got to go down there and help out. And it was like, they're going, you're codependent. Come on, we're up here learning all this advanced metaphysical stuff. I said, no, I'm going down. So I came down, I incarnated, if you will, with this purpose to help the world be a better place for people, to stop fighting each other, to have more joy, more love, more peace, etc. So that event, when I had that memory, if you will, in the visualization, was a big piece of it. And then the other thing I would say, what keeps me going is I'm happy when I do it. I'm joyful. Like I'm happy now doing this with you. And yesterday I spent hours coaching people on how to be best-selling authors. I got off the phone or Zoom call and I went, that was fun. So for me, as long as it's fun, like my wife said, retire. And I said, do what? You can play golf. I don't like golf. I like this. So yeah. As long as it brings me joy, and I believe joy is your guidance system, it tells you you're on purpose. Yeah. So that's what fulfills me. And getting emails from everyone, like you changed my life. I started the magazine because of you. I started the school because of you, whatever. That is what floats my boat, if you will. So I plan to keep doing that.
Yeah, you're amazing at how you inspire so many people, and you give them the belief in themselves, and you do it in such a gentle way. They don't even realize how impactful it is until later, and they're just like, it was Jack. It's totally Jack. And your method is just so gentle. Your team is amazing. The Canfield team is amazing, supportive, always there, always willing to help. And that, again, reflective of what you do. All the books behind you, I'm wondering how many of those books behind you are from students that you've taught?
Well, all of those behind me aren't, but to my other side over there, they are. And there's literally probably 1,000 of them. I've got 5,000 books in my house, and 3,000 of them I've read. Another 1,000 are from people. And then about 300 or 400 are books I either wrote. Then I've got all the translations of those, so it's pretty ridiculous. My books mostly are translated into 50 languages. So take 200 books times 50 languages, got 1,000 of those.
You got a lot of books there. Jack, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything you do, giving back the way you do, having that gorgeous smile of yours. P.S. I hit one of my goals. I lost 20 pounds, so I'm a very happy girl with that. So all you teach, I do walk the walk. So thank you for everything you do. Thank you for being on Healthy Lifestyle. And thank you all for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I hope we earned the privilege of your time. Again, look for us next week, next Saturday at 3 p.m. Until next time, play a higher role, serve a higher purpose, show up for you, and show up big. Thanks again, Jack.